Welcome to 33 Founders, a series about founders of the coolest startups. Brought to you by 33 Voices and hosted by Chase Jennings and Jenna Abdu.
Sure. So InVenture is a mobile technology company, and we build really simple mobile tools over text messaging and voice technology for emerging markets to allow individuals to do all their basic accounting, budgeting, and get credit scores all through their simple mobile phones.
Awesome. And there's a really big educational component to your business too. So what's the most important lesson you want to teach entrepreneurs both here and in developing countries about how to use their capital wisely?
Sure. Yeah. So, at InVenture, I think one of the big things for us was not about just kind of creating a really short-term solution. So we really realized what we were trying to solve was kind of how financial marketplaces or how formal marketplaces in general work. And there's two players on that side. So one is the actual kind of interacting individual who's looking for credit, who's looking for access to products and services. And the other is these financial institutions. And so we wanted to start on the individual side. And that really means making individuals more aware of how they spend money, how they track money, and in a sense, really the financial literacy piece. And that's kind of why we started with creating these accounting tools. Once we realized that individuals were willing to kind of give us that data and were interested in becoming more financially aware, then we tried to make the data more useful. And so that's really where we create these risk profiles and we create credit scores, where we connect individuals in the informal marketplace to these formal institutions. And so then there's an education piece on the financial institution side, which is really getting them to understand that there really are these incredibly successful, consumers out there that they should think about lending to or providing their products and services to. So we really think about it as kind of taking down the wall in between these two sectors.
Awesome, and you guys do a really great job of that. Another part of it, InVenture has so many different dimensions, is once the people receive funding and they're able to use that for whatever their business is, they also have a responsibility to help the community. What has the community response been to that?
Sure. So I think one thing in terms of our business model, what we realized is that we didn't necessarily need to be the only ones to provide that funding, right? So we've actually taken ourselves out of the equation, and we really put these financial institutions to kind of be the ones to do all that lending and kind of make them, really more efficient and help them to understand that there is a way to expand your portfolio by including these micro entrepreneurs. And I think the way that we've done that is to really show the fact that because of that community involvement after they receive funding, this is something that's going to almost create new business owners, new economies. All these different things are going to start to happen if you start investing in these kinds of businesses that create jobs and really give back to the community. So I think it's kind of just about kind of using data to really get people to see the value that's out there already.
Now, can you elaborate a little bit on the ways that you are working to satisfy both sides of the market, whether you're an investor or a small business?
Sure. I guess you mean in terms of how we show the value proposition to either side, right? Almost. Sure. Yeah, and so I think on the individual side, it's a lot easier for us, right? Because these are individuals who have never received formal access to capital. So you're really turning an individual now into an individual who's respected, who feels like they have opportunities ahead of them, and they're the ones who are in control of it, right? So they're using their mobile phones in a completely different way. They're getting access to information, and really they themselves are making their lives better. On the financial institution side, I think what we've shown is through our credit scores, we have less defaults in their portfolio. They have more information about how the loans are actually impacting lives. So in a sense, they can go out and get more funding based on that. And then I think the other piece is just kind of an overall kind of expansion of their portfolio to people they didn't know anything about before. And so, yeah, I think it's a win-win in terms of profitability and awareness.
Absolutely.
We definitely agree with that. So you've worked with a ton of entrepreneurs and you work with entrepreneurs every day, whether here or in India or in other places around the world. Is there one common issue that you see a lot of small businesses struggling with?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing would really still be this accounting thing. I don't know. I mean, and I think of it as us too, right? It's I we talk a big game as well, but our staff and our team here, we always talk about the fact that we should be using Insight, because thinking about money and money management, you kind of take it for granted, right? You're like, well, I'm transacting in cash, so I technically know how much money I'm spending every single day. But if you think about it at the end of the week, do you really know where your money goes, right? And if you did, you would probably change the way you spend that money and even think about it. And so I still think the biggest problem that we see in the entrepreneurs that we work with, or just entrepreneurs like ourselves, it's really this piece about kind of money management and financial awareness, I think.
I think I need my own Insight.
Yeah.
I always have with me. Let's shift gears for a second and talk about your journey. Like I mentioned before, Shivani, you've had your hand in so many different exciting parts of the business and the world, whether it's working in global health or investment banking and now microfinance. You've really had a special few years. Throughout it all, what do you think are the key ingredients to make an extraordinary entrepreneur?
Well, I mean, I would call myself more of an accidental entrepreneur. So I think I definitely was on a journey where I think the biggest thing I would say is really that I was always kind of in search of something, right? So whether it was kind of trying to solve my own kind of career curiosity, or trying to solve the problem that we're solving now, I think I was never afraid to kind of leave one thing to try something new. And so maybe that's one of the big things a lot of people say with entrepreneurship, it's not being afraid to take that kind of next challenge or that next risk and taking that leap of faith sometimes. But I think one of the things that really helped me along the way in taking those risks and next steps was the fact that I really did my research. I really kind of knew where I was going next and why I wanted to make that next move. And so, I always say this to new entrepreneurs and stuff is, don't just quit your job and then go start your own thing unless you actually know what you're going to do, right? Like, do you have a business model and are you doing something unique? And are you really going to have the runway for yourself to be able to put your whole self into this next venture? And that was kind of one of the pieces of advice that one of our advisors gave me really early on. She said, it's really great that you're excited and that you're passionate and that, you are putting these building blocks together, but really make sure that you yourself can do this and that you know what you're jumping into. So that's something that's helped me and I think could help other people.
Well, we would have had no idea that it was accidental.
Yeah.
And actually, you were recently named a TED Fellow. You also attended the Unreasonables Institute. Can you tell us a little bit about that experience, what excited you most, and how do you celebrate your milestones?
So I think one big thing is it's not just about my milestones, I think. So I think we really look at everything that we get, whether it's an award or a fellowship, and really think about it as a we and that we're a team that's doing this together. So in that sense, I think it's really fun because whenever something new comes in, all of us are sharing in it. And so, we do a lot of team activities, we do team retreats. So we try and kind of celebrate those like mini milestones. I think in terms of the actual fellowships in general, I'm a huge fan of those kinds of things and really believe that it's not only another way to kind of bring in capital for the organization, but it actually really allows you to kind of broaden your network and really get those kinds of best practices from other fellow entrepreneurs and other people that are doing the same kind of risk-taking work and trying to solve problems. And so you can bring that all back to your team and really kind of shape the work that you're doing through that.
How big is your team right now?
So we just became 12 people last week.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
That's exciting. Now, when you're hiring your new team members, what kind of qualities do you look for? Are you trying to duplicate yourself because you're so awesome? Or are you looking for some variety, maybe some people who are better than you? Like, what kind of things are you looking for?
Sure. Yeah, I'm not looking for myself. I think about it as kind of like where the holes are in the organization, what I'm bad at, and what I almost kind of need somebody else to to kind of cheerlead about or something that I see in them. And so a little bit of it is definitely kind of that chemistry and getting to know people. What I've started to do a lot is make it so that it's not just me involved in that hiring process. So we almost kind of do like a 360 hiring process where, because I go out and I like tend to really love people. So I come back from a conference or I come back from a meeting and I'm like, oh my God, we have to hire this person. And so our team kind of has to take a step, back, and they have to be like, okay, you like them, that's a given. Now let's actually make sure that they fit with our team. And so we've actually had new employees come in and actually start working with us for about 1 or 2 days and see how they interact with us, kind of bring them into a brainstorming session, and really see like what they will be doing with us, and kind of being really fully transparent about the problems and kind of challenges that we're facing. And I think that's really helped us a lot.
That's great. And another tip that you mentioned for entrepreneurs when you were at the Unreasonables Institute was that vulnerability can actually work to their strength. How do you personally deal with fear, and whether it's fear of hiring someone or fear of pitching to an investor?
Yeah, I mean, I think it definitely helps, because I think it just, I think it makes you honest. And not in a way that's like, you're not confident, but that you really are kind of exposing somebody else to the why of why you're doing this work. And so if you believe in something, in a sense, you're always going to have some level of fear of not wanting it to fail. And I think that can show a lot of passion and drive towards wanting to make something successful. And so not being afraid to show that is a good thing. I think with our team, what I try to do is I really include them in saying, okay, if I'm going into a big investor pitch, because I may have that little vulnerability or that fear, it almost makes our team come together more and to be more supportive of each other when we're in those meetings. So especially with big investor meetings, I do some of them alone, but especially if they're coming into our office to meet with us, I don't make it so that I'm just the solo person pitching. I really want them to get involved.
And then for our final segment, what is your greatest piece of advice for successful microfinancing?
I would have to say transparency. So really building the foundation for financial systems. So we don't want to ever think of microfinance as one siloed or isolated product, and to really remember that microfinance or microcredit gives people kind of that first step into the financial system, but we really need to think about how people will eventually graduate from a microloan into a very traditional formal banking institution. And so really making sure that we always think about those building blocks and how to make that transparent for a new borrower that comes in.